Hello and welcome. Yes, you. Thank you very much, Steve, for downloading another fantastic Confessions podcast from us here at Radio 2. So stand by for 4 tip-top confessions. All have been filtered from the dross I get sent. There's lots of fabulous ones, and there's a lot of rubbish ones. In fact, one day I should do a rubbish confessions podcast. All the ones that I'm not allowed to read out on air. I'm not sure the rules will allow that. Anyway, this is the best of what we have, and they had these titles this week. Faith, Hope and Clarity, Eye of the Liar, Pull Up to the Bumper, and Live to Show and Tell. Here come the stories. This is from Arnie. It's an interesting confession, this one. Slightly different. Forgive me, Father Simon and the Holy Collective. It was the early days of digital television, when the only way to receive signals was a set-top box and a very up-to-date aerial. I live on the cusp of 2 regions where analogue reception was difficult. I invested in an enormous aerial, a distribution system and a set-top box, eventually getting one in every room. How about that? Rodney, my son, reported one day that the set-top box nearest his bedroom, the one on the attic landing, was no longer working. Would I do something about it, please? Fathers are, of course, infallible, and dads have to do everything. Rodney knew that he could rely on me to sort out the set-top box. Have you remembered who it was?
I've just been told in my ears who
was it?
Natasha Kinski.
Oh, good choice, actually.
Well,
yeah.
Obviously.
Cat people putting out fire.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the set-top boxes.
Yes,
have you been paying attention to any of this?
Set-top and analogue and all that. Yeah.
Yes.
Loving it.
So Rodney is relying on his dad, Arnie, to sort it all out.
Yeah.
When Rodney comes home from school, what was he going to find? A brand new box that his father had purchased? Would it be a replacement box provided under guarantee? Or would his father have stripped it down and repaired it, because fathers never let you down? I turned everything on and verified that the unit was indeed goosed. Unplugging the box and returning the television to analogue reception worked well enough, but the set-top box was completely rubbish. I unplugged it, took the lid off. There inside a single circuit board, like many I'd seen and worked on before. I didn't have the source code for the firmware. I didn't have the debugging tools. And even if I did, was I really going to spend the time required to find and rectify the fault? What was I thinking? Anyway, I put the lid back on. Check the guarantee status. And it was, of course, a week outside of warranty. These things always are. So I plugged it all back in and turned it on. No need for a retune. It had retained its previous channel list and was now working perfectly. Long story short, had I turned it off and then back on again? Well, I had now. And everything was working fine, all was going to be well. When Rodney came home from school, he asked me about Freeview. I told him that it was all now working. He went and tried it. Clearly, it was the original box. Obviously, it was working perfectly. Could his father be any more of a genius? What on earth had he done to effect such a perfect and rapid repair? Oh, it was nothing, I said, quite honestly, but I deliberately designed my words to make it sound like false modesty. Rodney wouldn't leave it alone. He wanted to know exactly what I had done to get it going. And that was when the opportunity presented itself. Rodney was having regular run-ins with his RE teacher. He didn't understand why religious education was compulsory. He was spending an inordinate amount of time denouncing every religion that he came across. So how did you fix the set-top box then, Dad? Oh, it was nothing, I said. No, seriously, how did you fix it? I just said a prayer over it and it started working.
Wow.
I said. Pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
Obviously, he knew that I was winding him up. He also knew that he now had a telly that he could go and watch, so he gave up on me and went to watch television. After a few days, he let it go. He knew he wouldn't get any sense out of me until a few months later when he announced that the box had gone wrong again. Would I show him exactly what I had done? Of course I would, but I would go further than that, as any good father should. I would teach him how to repair it for himself. Bring the box down here, I instructed him, and I'll show you exactly how to get it going. Dutifully, he brought the box downstairs and set it up on the dining room table. I put my palms together over the box and said in my best religious voice,
Here we go.
Oh Lord, oh Lord, yes. Please make this free view. Because all preachers talk like this, of all faiths.
Go on.
From around the world. Oh Lord, make this Freeview box work again so that Rodney may watch television. Please ignore the fact he doesn't believe in you and show him the wonder of your ways. Amen. Anyway, I gave Rod the box back and told him that it should be plugged in straight away. There was some cursing from upstairs when he plugged it back in because he found that it did indeed work. And over the next few years, this was a routine that was repeated in various guises. Rodney would refuse to say any prayers over the set-top box, but I did persuade him to bring me both the box and a Bible to place the Bible on top of the box for 30 seconds, or until I judged that religion had done its thing. I had him bring me various sacred documents. It worked with every version of the Bible that we tried. It worked with the New Testament, other holy works, and it, even confusingly, I admit, a washing machine instruction manual. Rodney was so upset that he refused to tell me any more when the box stopped working. The trouble for him was whenever he bypassed the box, I could tell from my room on the floor below that he'd started watching one of the analog channels rather than his favourite. By tuning to the same channel, I could tell that he was receiving the signal several seconds behind me, therefore gone back to analog. "Bring the box here, Rod," I would boom up the stairs. "I'll lay hands on it if you don't have the faith." The box would appear, and I would intone, "Oh Lord, in your mercy, heal this box, send down your angels of justice and revenge. Amen." Anyway, there would be malcontented muttering followed by swearing when the box went back upstairs and was found to be working perfectly once again. The years passed and Rod grew older and wiser. One day, whilst attempting to watch the television on the attic landing and accidentally unplugging it, he of course repaired it for himself, and the penny dropped. The content and the volume and the duration of the torrent of abuse that ensued was truly a wonder to behold. He cursed himself for being so stupid. He cursed me for misleading him, and he cursed using words I had to look up on the internet. I seek not forgiveness from his mother or his siblings or even his deeply Christian paternal grandmother, who were all in on the joke, for it was their duty to give Rodney one of those life-forming experiences and to do it well. But I seek forgiveness from Rodney himself, for his language was quite fruity, was audible over a considerable distance, and there might just probably have been some nuns and some children walking past the house at the time who could have been offended or something like that. I don't think Arnie needs any forgiveness. I don't think he wants any forgiveness. He just wanted to tell us his story because he had one over his son, his atheist son, who thought he'd done some miraculous healing over the set-top box. What do you say, Sister Bobby?
Well, first of all, have either of you ever prayed like to the God of motor vehicles or the God of washing machines or the God of propane gas bottle regulators to go, please, can you just make it work so I can make a cup of tea or get to work or wash this clothes? You know, you just go, please, just keep working, yeah? You lay your hands on and go, or you give it a big thump and it works.
Or you're John Cleese, like you thrash it.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't often work. But there has been many times when you've just gone, please, just work one more time. And it does, and it's great. So I believe in the great, you know, kind of master of mechanics that makes things work. So I'm a believer.
What?
So what I'm saying is, as I believe in what he's done, and it's a great trick. But it also has some truth in it, that if you really, really wish it to work, and you lay your hands on, you can make it work.
That's exactly the kind of thing that Matt always says.
Yes.
Not.
Yes.
So of course, what a lovely story. It's great.
Yes.
And you got found out. And it got fixed. It got fixed every time. So no harm done, really.
You would have thought that he might have realised that it's in the act of the unplugging that actually...
Yeah. You'd have thought.
You would have thought, but anyway. So
You're forgiven.
maybe Rodney's not very bright.
Well, that could, yes, that is the first thing that springs to mind. The second thing that springs to mind is I love the fact that when they couldn't find a Bible, they decided to go for the washing machine manual, which is great, which does prompt the, well, you know, when they're trying to find a Bible for court cases, got to lay your hand on that one. Well, I can't find that, but I've got a washing manual for an indicent. Does that count? Yeah, fine, lovely. It also does prompt the question, is there a patron saint of set-top boxes? And if not, should there be one?
There probably is.
St. Lord Wreath, something like that. That works well. I'm going to go for Forgiven here, just because I love the idea of him, the foul language coming out, just because everything he's believing in is being turned upside down. So I love it. Well done, definitely Forgiven.
Okay. So here's tonight's confession, and just top team will find out who it's from right now. It's from Brian or Ryan. Brian.
Haven't we just made it up? We've made up the name, haven't we?
Brian.
So is it made up Brian or made up Ryan?
Made up Ryan.
Okay.
Ryan, we're saying now.
Or Brian.
Oh,
It's Bob.
Is it Bob?
Right. So, anyway, the key thing about this is...
Yeah.
We'll put a PG on it and a sort of a little bit of a warning, but it'll be fine, really. Father Simon and the Confessional Collective says Bob and Ryan. They're a couple now.
Yeah.
In the summer of 1991, I was a training instructor for a well-known company. Part of my employment was to travel through Europe training machine tool builders. On one particular occasion, I drove from England down to Stuttgart, and on arrival at the hotel, I carefully unpacked my bag in readiness for a 3-day training course which I was taking part in nearby. The next morning, I woke up early and refreshed and washed and rinsed my contact lenses under the tap for several seconds. Filling the lenses with the appropriate wetting solution, I carefully placed the first one into my right eye. Already some people are going, oh dear. I have to say, at that point, the pain was extraordinary. The pain, Father Simon, was immense. Burning and stabbing does not even begin to describe the agony. I held my eyelids apart under the shower, trying to dig out the offending lens. Eventually, after a few minutes, the lens was removed and I continued to hold my eye under a cold shower. Obviously, I did not put the other lens in, and with the right eye closed shut and unable to open, I got dressed and carefully drove to the client to carry on my training duties for the first day. What? What's the matter with you?
My toes
Struggling?
have gone. Yeah.
Bobby,
I'm just sitting there thinking, how could you do...
you've got a
this.
hand over one eye for one reason.
I'm just
acting
doing
it out.
Yeah, like this. Is that allowed? Is that
Anyway,
legal?
they inquired about my eye, and not wanting to appear stupid, I told them that I had got some shampoo in it in the shower. So lunchtime arrived and the pain in my eye was still pretty bad. My clients agreed with me that I should go back to the hotel and have a rest and try and sleep it off. Anyway, I go back to the hotel and straight up to bed, and I tried to sleep for a while, but I was unable to do so. So about 4 o'clock, I went down to reception and asked if they could get me a taxi to go to the hospital or go to a doctor. They asked me what had happened, and I also said I got some shampoo in my eyes, and they arranged for a taxi to take me to hospital. Anyway, on arrival at the very large hospital, they took me to the casualty department where the eye doctor put some yellow liquid in my eye, and it was fabulous. It relieved the pain, absolutely wonderful. The headache was gone. Everything was terrific. Thank you very much indeed to the doctor. On my way outside, the taxi that brought me to the hospital was instructed by the hotel to wait for me, and he was there, and he duly took me back to the hotel. We got back there to the hotel at 9 o'clock in the evening to a very concerned hotel manager who was waiting for me. He strongly shook my hand and inquired about my eye. I told him that all would be okay and no further damage was expected. He was very excited and pleased about this information and proudly announced that all the shampoo and shower gel products of that brand had been removed from all of his hotels.
All of them?
Yep. He led me up to the room, and upon opening the door, a beautiful bunch of flowers was arranged, bottle of champagne, large box of chocolates, by way of an apology for the pain and inconvenience I had endured. Well, now, I didn't really sleep very well that night, mainly due to the yellow liquid wearing off, but also possibly the guilt of not telling the truth. Because, due to the many miles of driving I do, my hard gas permeable lenses have become cloudy and smeary and were in need of some protein remover overnight. Unfortunately, I must have mixed up my bottles because I also carry a small bottle of liquid antiseptic. Just in case I get a cut or something needs sterilising. I had carefully put my lenses in the little holder and filled them with antiseptic. In the morning, I prepared for work and carefully put the patch over my right eye given to me at the hospital. Going to the car park, I noticed to my horror boxes and boxes of the shampoo and shower gel products outside and inside the wheelie bins. I quickly drove off to work. Fortunately, the company I was training took me out in the evenings, thus avoiding any further contact with the hotel manager and staff. I checked out a few days later with the patch still being required, drove back to England. Full recovery, of course. Father Simon, I'm seeking forgiveness from the hotel manager, the company who supplied the shampoo products, and the company I was training for, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, we haven't had a contact lens story.
No.
You can see, a number of contact lens wearers winced
Yeah.
as they worked out precisely what was going to happen, because you have to be very, very careful. You have to make sure you follow all the instructions, all the operators and your manufacturer's instructions, follow all the health advice, and call your GP.
Yes. Ticked every box there.
that
Well
right?
done. Yeah.
Be very careful.
Yeah.
Sister Bobby from the primary.
I have a few problems with this, so I'm going to be quick. First of all, if you get something in your eye and it hurts, don't go to your client. Secondly, when your client suggests you go home and sleep it off when you've got something still in your eye, you never do that. You go straight to A&E. It's your eyes, and get the appropriate help. And also,
He did
if you're
wash it, he
in,
did wash
no,
it.
yeah, but if it still stings after water's been in it and cleaned it, then there's something going on. The other thing is when you're in the hospital, you don't tell them you've got shampoo in your eye when you've
I
done
don't think he
something
did.
else.
I'm not. I didn't
because
do
that's
that.
going to be the wrong diagnosis. So they can do more damage.
I'm not sure that
Luckily,
he did
you've got
that.
to, anyway.
He just said that
I'm
to
just
the hotel
saying,
guy.
in the interest just the health and safety, that's not good advice. Also, that poor hotel had to do all that work and were really worried about who else was going to have a problem in their eye. Oh, I feel sorry for the manager. I feel really sorry for the company that supplied the shampoo and whatever it is, all the toiletries, because of course they've been rejected all through that area and with that chain of hotels. So they may have gone bust. So basically,
I think you're extrapolating a little bit unnecessarily.
Bob, and made up Brian, and made up Ryan.
You've been nobbled, haven't you? You've been speaking on behalf of authority.
You are not forgiven.
Someone's had a word with you. Matthew, what do you think?
Obviously, everything worked out fine in the end. I can't stand anything to do with contact lenses and eyes. Drives up my toes were curling up all the way through that confession.
What's wrong with you?
However,
what is wrong with you?
I have always wondered what I would look like wearing an eye patch, and I think I'd look rather roguish. In fact, I think you look sort of... There's something sophisticated about you wearing an eye patch. So I am going to say forgiven because he got the chance to wear an eye patch and look like there was something about him.
You can always wear one if you want. They're not very expensive.
I know, but then it's your sort of depth of vision, doesn't it? It mucks around with that. So I would say forgiven just because of the ability to wear an eye patch and look good.
Can I just add, did you say sophisticated?
Yes.
What, like Long John Silver?
Yes.
That kind of
You're
sophistication.
Very sophisticated.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Your inner pirate.
I think so.
Oh, look, now we're on. Now, today's confession, let me see who this is from. Oh, it's got a name on this one. This one is from Hugh. Thank you very much indeed, Hugh, for sending this. Top Tale, Father Simon, Thieving Collective, your recent car wash confession led me to recall an incident I had with a car wash in the early 90s. I was working in Bristol as a sales representative for a well-known insurance company. Sadly, no longer, as it is has been absorbed into one of those other big insurance companies, and it's owned by... Oh, right, look, it's owned by those people. I'm going to be very vague about that. Anyway, he was a sales rep. It was a Friday afternoon in July, and I was due to take my family to visit my parents in Sully, which is in the Vale of Glamorgan. I decided to leave early to beat the traffic, especially to avoid the Friday night nightmare that was the old Severn Bridge. Pre the second Seven Crosses, and a nice little bit of travel news update there.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Which often resembled a car park on Fridays in the school holidays, and in the full knowledge that the rest of the financial services industry would be in the pub on a Friday afternoon, as was the custom at the time, and it was very unlikely that I would be much in demand. So I left the office at lunchtime. I raced home from the office to our home in Saltford near Bath. Incredibly, my wife Gloria managed to pack the car and install my son Reese, who was 4, and my daughter Hannah, who was 2, into the car seats while I got changed. We left the house in good spirits by 3 o'clock. Traffic was relatively light along the M4. Another travel update for you, Bobby, there. From the early 90s, not much use. And over the Severn Bridge, and we were making good progress on our trip into South Wales. It was when we were going past Cardiff that Gloria commented on the state of the car, inside and out, and how ashamed I should be to be arriving at my parents' house with such a shocking car in such a shocking state. In fairness, it was a company car. It was a hatchback, and I did tend to use it as a multi-purpose vehicle, and being a hatchback, I could get an awful lot of stuff in it. Hence, it was pretty tatty. After another 20 minutes, we reached the Barry turnoff on the M4. Just a little bit of another update. That's where they are now.
Really good fairground there.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Interesting fact there. And I said, well, look, when we get to Barry, I'm going to go to the garage and get it and wash the car. Tomorrow, I'll vacuum it through, which seemed to satisfy Gloria, and we continued on our way. On reaching Barry, I turned into a garage, which I think was called Thomas Motors, and I saw that they had the old-fashioned hand jet car wash. For younger listeners, this is the one where you manually had to clean your car with 2 lances, one with a brush, which foamed, and the other the power jet, which cleaned it off. I put £2 into the machine, and after 10 minutes the car now looked presentable enough, on the exterior at least, to take over to my parents, and pleased with my efforts I put the 2 hoses back in their holders on the jet wash machine. I then got back in the car, turned on the engine and proceeded to pull away. I was then greeted by a noise from the 2 children, very reminiscent of the sound made by the alien characters in Toy Story when they see the claw. Followed by Reese saying, "Daddy, why is the car wash falling over?" Glanced in my mirror to see the final denouement of the jet wash, followed by what can only be described as a spectacular 30-foot water spout gushing everywhere. Small children danced in the impromptu water feature, but I was horrified. I stopped the car and jumped out to discover that while I had carefully put the hoses in their holders, what I had neglected to check was that they were clear of the car and not wrapped around the rear wheel arch, which is clearly what caused the sad demise of the jet wash, now horizontal. I then had to go into the office of Thomas Motors and walked with great trepidation up to the desk, oh dear, at which there were two burly Welshmen.
Hey, here we go.
No, you're not getting
Excellent.
it.
Brilliant.
Excuse me, I said. I think there's a problem with your car
Yes.
wash.
What did they say, though?
They said, "What's the problem?" says burly Welshman number one.
Sound very Welsh.
I say, "I'm afraid it's fallen over." After 30 seconds of looking at me in disbelief, as they clearly considered me an idiot of the highest order, they both walked out to survey the damage. They looked at their jet wash, prone on the floor, and a 30-foot water spout gushing away. It was then that burly Welshman number 2 turned to burly Welshman number 1 and said a line in a very Welsh accent which is indelibly etched into my memory.
Yes.
But for
Yes.
purposes of this line, I'm going to do as Michael.
Really?
I'm going to do it as Michael Caine.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So burly Welshman number 2 to burly Welshman number 1 says, "I told you to buy a blooming drive-through."
Is that Cornish, Michael Caine? Yeah.
No, it's a little bit Michael Caine. Anyway, I cleaned that line up
Yes.
for general broadcasting purposes. I then had the uncomfortable task of ringing my boss in Bristol to say that I'd had an incident with my car and a car wash, at the same time hoping that he wouldn't ask me what I was doing in Wales 4:30 on a Friday afternoon when my work was in Bath. So Father Simon and the collector asked forgiveness not only from the two gentlemen at Thomas Motors, which I did notice had shut down on my next visit to Barry, hopefully not as a result of the loss of revenue from the car wash, but also from my very understanding boss, get this, who had to sign off an insurance claim for £8,500, which was an awful lot of money in the 90s and quite a lot of money now. Quite possibly the most expensive car wash ever. 8,500 quid. But then he did wreck it, so I suppose that makes sense. Anyway, at least my car was nice and clean when I arrived at my parents'. All right, very good. Thank you, Hugh, who, because he didn't put it back in the holster properly, it was all wrapped round the wheel arch, wrecked the car wash, 30-foot spat into the air. That's what you need. Red Adair to come and fix it. What have you got there, Sister Bobby, do you think?
That's one of my worst nightmares. I've done it many, many times. Haven't driven off, but those hoses, they just get everywhere. You nearly take people out with them, and they're not long enough, and it doesn't go on for long enough. And even when you've put 50 pounds in, it's still not long enough for a full rinse. So I was just wondering what hot hatch you were driving in the 90s as well. Was it a little like Peugeot 205 or
I'm
something?
afraid I don't have that information.
Okay, but of course you owned up to it. What can I say is you didn't really do any harm to anyone. Luckily, it could have been worse, and you owned up to it. So absolutely, Hugh, I feel for you. That could have been me many times. You are forgiven.
What do you say there, Brother Matthew?
Well, I only use those hand jet spray to clean my car. I don't trust car washers or robots to do my washing of my car. They
Why don't you
always
get
miss
your
a bit.
son to do it?
No,
Give him a quiz.
yes, no, because I use it and I love using the jets as well. And yes, very appeals to a certain part of me. Who is this boss who's prepared to write off £8,500 and also doesn't mind that you're not in work at that time on a Friday? No wonder the business went under. So I am going to say forgiven because you were best out of that company, frankly. But jet washers very much.
It was the garage that went under.
The garage went under.
Yes.
But the company also went under, didn't it? The company got bought by someone else because they were
it did,
writing off £8,500 left, right, and centre on jet washers.
They're now owned by a Swiss-based insurer, apparently.
Okay, enough information.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't
that'll
mention
do.
that bit.
Yes. Yeah, I'm going to forgive.
So this one comes from Crazy Horse.
Oh, yeah.
The Crazy Horse.
Yep. Dear Wise and Forgiving Collective, a few years ago when my daughter was aged 6, her class teacher ran a show and tell slot for children to bring things in from home. Stand in front of the class, talk about it for a few minutes. Everyone has done this kind of thing, we'll know what's happening. If I can just do a flashback and take the story back a few months, my daughter Katie and I were rootling through boxes from the loft to see what treasures that we could find. As we delved deeper into the boxes, we came across a carved totem pole. It was about 6 inches in height. So far, the only remotely exciting thing that we'd found was a broken model car, so finding a totem pole was like striking gold for Katie. She was so excited and eager to know what it was, where it had come from and so on. She asked me loads and loads of questions, and it seemed, to be honest, too good an opportunity to miss. I think you might like this, man.
Okay.
This seemed to be the one chance to tell a barefaced lie to the one person that believed everything I said and was amazed with some of the adventures I told her about so far. So I told Katie that I had carved it when I was young, and I hadn't always lived in Wales, but I had actually been born and... I spent my early years as a Cherokee.
Hey, of course. Yeah.
I said that I was a Native American until I was 8. I spun a yarn about living in a teepee and headdresses and horses and all that kind of stuff, all backed up with images from the internet to show where I grew up, what my teepee looked like, and even a few pictures. I even went as far to explain that my skin colour had lightened considerably due to the fact I was living in Wales.
Right.
Anyway, so let's fast forward. I was in work when I got a phone call from my wife angrily asking, "What have you been telling Katie about totem poles then, matey?" She said.
In her best Welsh accent.
With a nervous laugh, I explained that I thought it would be funny to tell Katie how I used to be a Cherokee and that I had carved the totem pole. My wife went on, not in a good humour, I should add, to explain that Katie had taken the totem pole into school, stood up in front of the whole class and spoke in great detail about how her dad used to be a Native American, pretty much the exact story that I'd told her a few months earlier. I was not in her good books at all. After discussing the matter further, we decided that Katie may be too upset if I'd told her I had lied, and that she'd told her class something that was completely untrue. So we now jump forward a month, and it's parents' evening. As we walk in to the class for our slot with the teacher looks up and says to me, "Oh, right, yeah, you're the Cherokee then." "Yes," I say, as Katie was stood right next to me. Katie stands there looking proud and says, "See, miss, I told you he was." So miss then looks up at me. "So your skin's not painted with gunpowder anymore?" No. "The slits in your ears have healed, I see." Yes, this woman had done her homework about Cherokee. "So clearly," says Crazy Horse, "I need forgiveness from my wife and the teacher, although, to be honest, they knew better. But particularly, I seek forgiveness from my daughter, get this, as I will have to tell her one day, and she probably won't believe any of my other wild and wonderful stories from that day on."
Well, you know.
So this could be news, breaking news, that that ridiculous story that your father claimed where he was saying that he was actually a Cherokee and then taken to Wales at the age of 8. Guess what? It wasn't true. So, but got a good show and tell out of it. Let's see how the collective are thinking about this particular story. Sister Bobby going first.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I always say, don't lie to your children because, of course, there's
No one
always.
says that.
But, however, and the thing is I have done a similar thing. Yes, I have.
What
Yes.
did you- what did you claim?
Well, the thing is, it's related to the rugby because I told my niece and nephew that I played for the England rugby team, and my nephew came in to me and said, "So who's in your team then?" I said, "Johnny Wilkinson's in my team." They went back and told all their school friends, so I got a phone call from my big sister. It said, "Excuse me, can you tell me what you told your niece?" And I went, "Why?" Because she'd gone to school. Of course, they laughed at her. So unfortunately, my little Japan kind of story made her the kind of the butt of the joke at school.
Wow,
So that's
what a horrid auntie.
You see, Bobby, why didn't you tell it was the England women's team? Better you'd have been all right.
See, the thing is that never concerned them. They never thought of gender. They believed me because the reason why they believed me is because their auntie Bobby would never ever tell a lie to them. So there you go. So the thing is Crazy
Their whole
Horse.
world has crashed.
I know. I forgive you. I do forgive you because I
played
have done a
with Johnny
similar
Wilkinson.
thing.
Well,
I know.
there you go. It's
And
official.
I didn't see the kind of potential outcome of my funny story. And of course, actually, the thing is, it's when you tell her that you're not really a Cherokee. What you do is, if you wait until she's about 25, she will just hug you for
Too
it.
late for that now. What do you think here, novice?
Gosh, how long ago was this? How old is Katie now?
It's just a few years ago when my daughter was 6.
Yeah, so she could be 10 or something like that. Because
Yeah.
I love Rootling for Treasure with Katie inquiring mind. She sounds a great kid. And you really sold her down the Swanee. But I think the moniker Crazy Horse gives you something to... I'm not sure we gave him that one, or that was already
No,
there.
it was signed Crazy
Well,
Horse.
there you go.
We didn't feel as though we had to change the name to a different Native American.
Did we not get the lawyers in on that?
See, that's the point.
Oh, dear.
He's still half Cherokee mentally. He's still there. He's not really moved on. But if Murray Walker can do it, and certainly, well, the whole school will have looked at him, certainly the teaching fraternity, and thought, what a silly person. So Crazy Horse, I'm going to forgive you because it's a great tale.
Okay, let's see how
As we know, I have no problem with lying to kids, no problem whatsoever. However, I do have a slight problem here because he lied to his daughter knowing that she was about to repeat that lie in school. It's okay to lie to them, and then as an indirect consequence, they then tell everyone at school. But so that's why Bobby would be forgiven. But here, I'm steering away from that because I think he knew she was going to be saying this in school, and also if you're going to tell a lie, you need to back up your lie. So how hadn't he done his homework on what the Cherokees wore and what happened to their ears? So I am not going to forgive, which is a world first for me.
You're just being difficult.
Absolutely, yes. There you go.
Well, they were this week's confessions. Did any of them make you think that actually you've got something that you have always been meaning to send me, and now is the time? Send it to confessions@bbc.co.uk, or you can go to our website, find the drive time pages, and click on Take Part in the Show. So the rest of the week's interviews are up there as well. While you're looking, on Monday, it was young Jimmy Osmond. He was in. Yeah, really. We had a fabulous Tunes Day there on Tuesday. On Wednesday, top actor David Harewood, MBE, talking about his Brummie accent, plus being on that fabulous Sunday night TV show with Hugh Laurie called The Night Manager. That's all there. And Nigel baked Grandpa Beard's upside down ginger cake, all fabulous. And if you get to this part in the podcast, I would like you to tweet, "The Brummie accent is the best of all." Thank you.